2, 1. That's actually pretty good. That's quite impressive. You're the best group I've ever had. I say that to all the groups. Who knows about the innovator's dilemma? It's a kind of MBA thing. I didn't do an MBA. I think it's a complete waste of time. Sorry to any MBAs in the room. But we'll talk about it today because I feel like I had this startup called Lingumi and we were acquired by Novakid. And I feel like now in this bigger company, I'm living through what maybe would become an MBA case study, which is what do you do when you're this big incumbent, relatively big incumbent, and there's this new generation of technology threatening your core business. So what is Novakid? Just quickly, let me do a bit of corporate promotion. Does anyone know Novakid already? Yeah. We're actually pretty big in Israel, and there's a few people from Israel here tonight. Some people know it. Okay, so we teach kids English online through live classes, one-to-one and group live classes. We're the biggest English teaching platform in Europe, I think, maybe in the world. About 80,000 paying monthly active users, to give you a sense of scale. We have about 2,000 live teachers. We teach 5 million classes roughly per year. And the revenue of the group is like 80 million or north of 80 million now dollars, and it's profitable. So it's a sort of reasonably scaled up tech business. Profitable, it's like a swear word in tech. It really is profitable. And Novakid teaches kids ages 6+. So there's like a teacher, they meet the kid, it's all live, traditional stuff. And they acquired Lingumi, which was the business I started 10 years ago, last year to add a kind of younger kids non-live element. We make sort of gamified lessons for kids who are a bit too young to meet a live teacher. And we were mostly active in East Asia, Taiwan and China. So it's unlikely there are any Lingumi users in the room. And what have I learned? I'd never done any live tutoring. So what have I learned in 1 year? Kids really love their teachers. It sounds obvious, but I came from a game-based learning world. I wasn't sure how much the human connection was going to really matter to a kid. And real human teachers, not AI avatars. So here's a few quotes. What I like about these is people name their teacher. It's, Liesel's particularly good. It's a great experience. My 9-year-old loves his teacher. The 3 stars I gave were exclusively for my teacher. Mr. Vad is amazing, but the site is crap. I'm responsible for the site. So what's the dilemma? Everything sounds great, right? Big business, profitable, we can just relax and sit on our sofas. What's the problem? The problem is this innovator's dilemma. What is that? Successful companies keep slowly improving things for their best customers. And meanwhile, we ignore disruptive innovation, as it's called, which starts out much worse. It looks like a toy or looks really rubbish. And over time, disruptors, this new category, gradually improve their product, usually at a much lower price point. And the incumbent eventually gets toppled. And that might happen very suddenly, or it might happen actually quite slowly. Your line is flat and their line is steep. And meanwhile, successful companies keep slowly improving things for their best customers. Novakid, we're reasonably successful. We added some sparkly UI to our classroom. Cool. And it is really a nice feature, actually. Teachers love it, kids love it. But it's not super disruptive. The startup launching today is not focusing on adding stars to the classroom. They're building something completely new. And meanwhile, the disruptive innovators start out much worse. I'm not throwing any shade on any competitors who see this video, but these are some things in the AI tutoring space today. There's Duolingo, video calls with Lily. Has anyone tried that? What do you think? Horrible. Okay, I didn't say horrible, but horrible, one person said. It's not a super developed feature yet, let's say. This is another kids AI tutoring one. That's actually a friend's startup doing maths AI tutoring. These are like the early disruptors starting to emerge. And I was amazed coming into Novakid, quite a big company, about 500 people, how completely relaxed all the employees, not all the employees, how completely relaxed many employees felt about the fact that these companies are being founded now. And we were just not thinking about it. So part of my goal was to get us to shake things up a little bit and think about this risk. And one of the big risks is it's at a much lower price. So if it's 10 times cheaper, but 3 times worse, it's already a bit of a difficult decision for a buyer, right? Which one should I use? It's only 3 times worse, but it's much cheaper. So let's look at a real example. This is Novakid, 6 months of 2 lessons per week. It's pretty expensive. You've got to really want to invest in your kid to pay $500 today. And meanwhile, this is another kids' AI learning app. And it's pretty cheap for the same amount of time. It might not be as good, but it's pretty cheap. And This is the big scary risk if you're the incumbent. And over time, those guys improve their product. Here's a really nice, easy example, right? We all know this website. And it looked like absolute crap at the start. So look for the flat lines emerging. I think it looks a bit like this. And the asymptote, the point where the line flattens, call bullshit on that in your company early. Be like, guys, it's not looking great for us right now. Are we starting to find it harder and harder to grow? And is that because customers are just gradually starting to adopt the less good but much cheaper thing that's out there? So what do you do? What do you do when you're in this situation? I think as a PM, you can be the person who confronts the strategic tension. At Lingumi, we had a PM who is an amazing guy who built this whole slide deck all about how completely screwed we were if we carried on doing what we were doing at a certain point. And it was just amazing. And we changed our entire company strategy based on this one slide deck. And even years after he left, we were still showing these slides. And I would say be the person who makes those slides. It's great for your career. It's fun to do it as well. It's a big challenge to the company. I was looking through our reviews and I saw this one, right? The only downside is that the lessons are expensive. I think that's the clue, maybe. That's just the beginning, the one drop of water that could turn into a flood for us, because it'll look more and more expensive as AI tutors get better and better. And we can't bring our prices down, right? Because we have a fixed cost of a human, whereas inference costs are just going to zero. How to approach these problems? I talk a bit with my team about high learning, low noise solutions. High learning is obvious, right? How quickly can you learn something? Low noise is maybe something people think about less, but has anyone done that thing where you make a change to the product and you're sure it's going to be fine, but you have 3 weeks where customers are going completely mental? Has anyone done that before? Or was it just me? There's a few hands. And your customer support team are not going to be happy if you just change the product tomorrow without warning them, and customers will complain. And it just makes a lot of noise. So you need to try to find like a high learning, low noise opportunity. What can you do that's not going to make customers upset? So for Novakid, what that means is we decided to say, okay, after a human teacher has taught some new stuff, let's add an AI tutor at the end of that experience or the next morning. And that AI tutor will help them practice the thing they learned with their human teacher. Our teachers were happy, our customers were happy. It's just something new for them to try. If they don't like it, they don't have to keep going. And it didn't create any noise at all. The CS noise was only positive. The metrics that matter here, there's not one thing. You need to know, is your conversion rate going to be the same? But you also need to check, is the revenue per customer going to go up or go down or stay the same? And our big fear was that this bronze, this super cheap thing, right? Remember, we're normally charging $500. So $15, that sounds pretty nice. This is the self-disruption, the bronze. And our fear was that was going to be too attractive. And maybe people are buying humans today, but they would say, oh, for $150 a year, yeah, I'll take this cheap thing. And so what we looked at was the distribution. This was a real distribution in the first test. And what percentage of people were buying that new plan, that cheap plan. And there's two values to this data. One is, are people interested in this proposition? Do people want this cheap AI-driven learning? And so from that perspective, we want the number to be high. But on the other side, we don't want the number to be too high, because otherwise, what happens to our revenue is going to go down. And so we're very interested in the balance we would come to here and how we basically optimize for that over time. And we're right in the middle of that now. I can't tell you where we're going to end up, but I can say that we felt that was maybe a little bit too high as a starting point. It was almost like a bit too self-disruptive to have 20% of people picking the AI-only option. So as a takeaway from this section, like the solution section, I would say for a PM, before you jump into jobs to be done and whatever product process, start with a big strategic question, which is like, what is your today versus tomorrow for your company or your product? And I think to give some examples, if we were looking back at Netflix and Blockbuster, when Blockbuster looked at streaming on Netflix the first time it launched, they would have said it's super slow, it's super low quality, and also maybe people are worried about viruses if they stream a video online. And the tomorrow version of that is like, what's the inevitable endpoint? It's instant streaming, 4K quality, you can watch it anywhere in the world. I guess for most of you, like there's 0-second buffer when you press play on Netflix now. It's incredible. And for AI tutoring, so the Novakid version of this, today it's pretty clunky, right? If you try the video call with Lily on Duolingo, it's not an amazing, slick experience. it feels pretty uninteractive, and it just feels like a GPT wrapper, right? It just feels a bit like voice mode on ChatGPT. I think a lot of people's response to AI tutoring apps is, I just use voice mode. Why is this better? But the tomorrow version of that is it's really personalized, so it really remembers stuff about you, what's your child's favorite food and football player. It's free, that's the most dangerous thing, and it's really interactive, quiz questions are appearing, and it becomes this daily habit. So now into the nitty-gritty. What did we do? We wanted to build an MVP as quickly as possible. And there was this slight tendency at Novakid to engineer for low cost and scalability at the very beginning. Does anyone else see that amongst their engineering org? People, yeah, it's a couple of hands. People perfectly rationally, an engineer will be like, yeah, that's going to get really expensive really quickly and the code's going to be really crappy, so why don't we just do it right? And doing it right takes a lot of time. So you should absolutely fight tooth and nail to do it a horrible, unsafe, scrappy, crappy, cheap way. And the PM who leads this product, I don't want to take the credit, the PM who leads this product had this wonderful idea, which was to put a Figma animation of a talking duck. Literally, window 1 is Figma, and behind that, window 2 is an 11 Labs agent in the 11 Labs web window, just playing in the background, right? And then just hide that window. And I've heard this called a Wizard of Oz test. You just fake the experience. And then they Zoom screen shared through to the kid. So the kid just, on full screen on Zoom, just assumed they were using the product. And this was what it looked like. I thought it was awesome. There you go.
Are you ready to learn some food words with me?
Yes, I'm ready.
Anyway, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but that was the first version. And obviously you can't ship that to production. It's a complete Wizard of Oz test, but you can get your insights really fast from that. And I think the other decision we made is you've got to pick which segment of your users you want to do this for. And we have a whole load of beginners on Novakid, but this would have been a very inappropriate product because LLMs are really good at language. They try hard to be really fluent. And so limiting them down to talking to a total beginner in a language is actually really difficult. You have to prompt the hell out of that experience. And again, it's just a strategic decision. You have to say no to something. And we said no to 50% of our user base. So what happens next? Solve retention before you solve anything else. Don't give it to thousands of people. Give it to 100 people. 100 is nice because it makes the cohort maths a bit easier. And just see what happens with that cohort. And 100 is also nice because you can text 100 people. It's a few hours of your day, but you can do it. And you can have a conversation with several of those people. I think what PMs love and what I love is going on Mixpanel and seeing 4,000 person cohort with a whole bunch of percentages, because that's really easy. You just sit there at your laptop. And what's hard is calling people up or emailing them and trying to arrange a call. But that's where your insights will come from, those early, really honest cohorts. Take this 30% with a huge pinch of salt, but until you have in consumer, in ed tech, blah, 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 this is about accurate, until you have roughly 30%, maybe it's 50% in B2B SaaS, week 2 retention with no effort. You should not be sending CRM reminders or any kind of push notification or whatever. Just organically, if people are not coming back, roughly 3 out of 10 people not coming back, it's not good enough. There's no point giving it to any more of them. And that was the bar I tried to set for my team. So let's look at some good and bad product choices. Don't build anything that you could pay more not to build. Strategic problems are not just for the CEO. I've been a CEO in a small company. I'm now a normal person in a bigger company and I have a boss. And I think it's really important that anyone in the organization is bold enough to bring strategic problems up the food chain. And I think the more shocking, the better. Make some slides that say, the end is nigh, we're going to die unless we quickly change. Because I think you have to shock executive teams out of their lazy slumber sometimes. Oh, that's the end. Thank you very much. I hope that was in some way useful.